Hello, Tom. So
Good
good to
morning,
see you once
Michael.
again. Another episode of Coffee with Tom and Michael. Yes. Yay. So today it's going to be an interesting day. We're going to go back to our media roots and we're talking about how companies in the media industry can use our powerful new research tools to improve their data collection and their strategic use of quantitative consumer research. And there are a lot of topics in there. The large media companies actually do a lot of different kinds of research. They do creative research, ad research, content research, audience research, and then ad performance research, probably the 5 major categories. And we've worked on all of them in one way or another, mostly with big data in the past, and now with what I like to call small data, but very powerful data. So
More but beautiful.
small but beautiful. So I think we first wanted to kind of touch a little bit on new ways that our fast and efficient market research tools can be applied to creative testing. So maybe you've done a bit of this now with customers. So what have we seen, and kind of how is it changing creative testing?
So creative. So I mean, there's a big move actually in synthetic creative testing. Yeah. Where that's been launched by Kantar and a bunch of people where they trained models on 500,000 ad tests and they try to predict what's going on. The problem with these things is that they just really what we data scientists call reversion to mean.
Mm-hmm.
What it basically means is if the ad doesn't look like all of the other ads it's seen, then it's going to say it's not very good. So the best ones will be pulled down and the worst ones will be pulled up. So a bunch of people are doing that, but our approach is a little bit different. What we just say is, okay, let's do really, really fast copy testing.
Yeah, I thought actually in some of the early discussions around this, it was really, really fast, also really, really inexpensive. And one of the things that I remember being, at least from my vantage point, exciting was today creative testing is kind of left to the last step in the process
Yep.
before we field an ad. And what the people who are developing the creatives would really rather do is a bunch of earlier testing to kind of see, hey, I've got 4 or
That's
5
exactly right.
ideas. And when you drop the cost of things by 80% and drop the time, reduce the time it takes to produce ad results by 80%, you can do this. And it's especially doable with things like creative testing, which is a very repetitive process. It's a very
That's
well
exactly
understood process. So fielding and executing very fast,
That's
right?
exactly. I mean, we can get a creative test into field and results from 500 to 1,000 people within 2 hours.
Right.
It's literally within your lunch break. It's interesting. I was chatting to a political guy, I think last month, and he was saying they're hot. They've got obviously got to make a ton of creative, leading up to the midterms this year, and they were saying their whole creative testing process is built around the testing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the testing is slow,
Right.
and it really shouldn't be. And the irony for me is that actually when you can do an ad test, a few $1,000 and you can get the results in 2 hours. Yeah. With real people, that's about the same amount as you're going to pay to do an AI creative test. Yeah. And so
What do you mean?
why would you pay for the AI one when you can do a real one?
So that's interesting. And I think that, it seems like the need for an efficient creative testing tool is also sort of accelerated by the arrival of a lot of kind of custom creative or AI driven creative, where we're
Yep.
actually, instead of having one primary ad, we may have many versions of an ad that might be intended for many
Yep.
cohorts of an
Yep.
audience.
DCO, dynamic creative optimization is the term, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been fundamentally of the belief that if you're going to get an AI to cut an edit of an ad, you really want to be testing it in front of real humans. Yeah. So, I've always kind of thought, okay, what you need to do is you set up your workflow, you get your AI to do some different variants, you then get it agentically to put that to field creative test in front of real humans. You get the results back for those 10 different ones. You choose the best. Maybe you then put those ones on air.
So, and is that results back from the initial set of AI efforts, a kind of training data for the AI to
I
focus
think that's
its
exactly
creative
what you
test?
can do.
Yeah,
Exactly. You then feed it back into the loop, and it's going to make it more intelligent as it goes along.
we should just do that.
Yeah.
That's a really big idea. That's a great idea. We could tie that to the performance market in some really interesting ways.
That's exactly right. It's still dynamic. It's still early days for dynamic creative optimization, but I think this is an essential part of it. That's
Right.
going to happen.
Real human training data on agentic variations is really cool. That's
That's
actually
exactly
really
right.
cool. Yeah,
Exactly
that's a
right.
real idea. All right. So the other area that is, I think, really exciting, where we're actually quite starting to build some really good business, is in this notion of always on brand lift. So
Yep.
why don't you describe how we do that and kind of what the innovation is that makes that
Yep.
economically
Absolutely.
possible?
Absolutely. So brand lift is, honestly speaking, the good side of it is, it comes with pretty much most campaigns it gets run. The bad side of it is it's slow. It often comes in, far too late. It's not configurable. So, it's a bit, yeah, okay, one size fits all. Yeah. And, it's very much, what you get out of the box. Yeah. What we do, and it can be pretty expensive too, actually. You're
Right.
talking fifteen to $20,000 for a brand list study. Yeah.
And it's usually done when the campaign is over,
Yeah.
usually,
Oh, yeah,
right?
you get the information far too late. And so, the way we look at it is rather than doing it campaign, why not just do always on brand lift? Yeah. So, you've got, so let's say, you're someone on the sell side, you might have a couple of hundred campaigns running. And so, we can set up always on brand lift for you. Yeah. So then, we need a pixel or we need, server side integration. Yeah. Respondent comes in to the survey. We immediately match what they've been exposed to. We route them accordingly. We give them whatever custom questions are set up according to that brand. Yeah. And you can see the results in real time. What's interesting about this is it's a totally different proposition because, first of all, from a value benefit, it's instant and it's fully customized. But from a workflow perspective, we haven't got anyone writing surveys for every one campaign, but everyone writing reports for every campaign. We've got AIs doing that, which also means our cost is significantly lower. And
Right.
so for me, this is one of these absolutely fabulous sweet spots where with an agentic research platform, you can do something faster, cheaper, and significantly better than the way that incumbent suppliers have been able to do it.
And if I recall correctly, for a sell side platform with, let's say, even 50 customers, if we're running always on brand lift for all 50 customers, it's on the order of a couple $100 per month per
Oh yeah,
brand,
incredible!
right?
It's
It's
incredible.
Yeah, it's very inexpensive, and that's going to give the brand a dynamic view of how their
Yep,
campaign is driving
yep,
recall,
yep,
equity, all the things you measure in
yep.
brand lift progressively over time. And you can actually kind of get into cohorts a little bit, right?
I think this is more and more. If you think about how consumer purchases happen in a world where you've got Google AI summaries, you've got ChatGPT, you've got Claude, people are going in and they're saying, "Hey, which are the best electric blinds I can get?"
Yeah.
And if the brand that's being recommended by their favorite LLM is one they've already heard of, they're probably just going to click on the link and go for it. Yeah.
Hmm.
If not, they're going to do more research. And so I actually think that brand impact, that brand advertising becomes more important in a world where you've got much more AI enabled discovery and shopping.
Right. It's very, very interesting. And a brand can come in mid campaign and tweak a little bit the questions we're
Exactly.
asking and kind of probe on if they're not succeeding with their new
Ex-
Ford
ex-
F-150. Why not? I mean that they
exactly.
can. Yeah. That's
Exactly. This is the kind of stuff that, if you had a legacy platform like, Decipher or Qualtrics, it would just be impossibly complicated to do. Yeah.
right.
And you'd be far too likely to make mistakes, which is why no one does it.
Right. It's very, very interesting. So we love that. I think we particularly like it as a supplemental signal for the sell side teams where they're gathering performance data, maybe they're
Yep.
gathering Nielsen data, whatever it is. But this is a supplemental and an interesting additional demonstration of value, right?
That's
That,
exactly
that,
right.
that-
For me, it's very simple. Most people, they only do brand lift on big studies because it's all they can afford to. With what we're offering, they should be able to do brand lift on every study, on every campaign that they're running. And that's just going to make, it's going to demonstrate the efficacy of the advertising more. It's going to make it easy for the advertiser.
right.
It's got to be all around good for the industry. I guess the real question that I always think about is, what can you do if the cost of doing primary research is a fifth of what it is today?
Right. Right.
That's the real question. What changes in your decisions about how you're going to design your measurement solutions?
And it strikes me that, particularly going back to our old friends in media, if you're wondering where your audience is going, you don't need to do that once a year. You can now pay attention to how your audience is moving at least once a month, right? I mean
That's
that's
exactly
that's a real thing. And if you're wondering which of your new content, your new shows and so forth is actually drawing back the audience that you care most about, the audience that you really monetize, or the audience that your station is focused on delivering to its customers, different strategies there. Once again, you can get in and look at the performance of your properties really quickly and
right.
frequently and make adjustments in time scale that's not really possible today, right? So I think those are the main things. I mean, there's lots of stuff you can do with market research. The interesting question, as you've put it, is what would you do differently as a head of research or as a VP of consumer insights if you could go in and ask questions very frequently and get the answers very
That's
fast, which is that's the step function change in the marketplace. And, I think it's what makes MX8 Labs so very exciting.